And I want to be able to say that without creating shame or more mom guilt. Lordy knows there's enough of that going around. We're just human beings relating to other human beings. And that's always going to be messy. And that's okay. And I believe that there's always a path forward, always a way back to connection, always a way to repair, especially when we're talking about our kids. When I was 16 years old, I made myself a big promise. My parents were divorced when I was really young. My mom moved us from Tucson, Arizona to New York City, where she was being her ambitious 1970s feminist badass off to work for a major newspaper. We left behind my extended family, and my dad remarried, and he and his new wife had a son, my half-brother Ian. And so as a teenager, well, as a kid, I had this perspective of two different households. And so at my mom's house, it wasn't perfect. I was, for all intents and purposes, a latchkey kid, but I was loved. I was supported. There was no question that my mom had my back no matter what. My dad's house was different. My stepmother, my brother's mom, was much more punitive, much more old school, traditional, I guess you would say. And my brother, he's a little boy. He was a kid. And so he had a lot of energy, asked a million questions. He had this sparkle, this exuberance about him. But I could see that the way that he was parenting was diminishing that spirit. I could see, even as a kid, that things were so inconsistent. Like, how the heck was he supposed to know how the rules worked if the rules were different from one day to the next? Something that was cute on Tuesday would get him locked in the bathroom for an hour on Thursday. If he was fresh and his mom didn't like it, he would get Tabasco and soap in his mouth at the same time. But if he was funny and charming at a party, she would play it up and he'd get a lot of attention for this. There were a lot of rules in that house. So one of the rules was that you had to finish all of your food. And I remember one day he was being punished for not eating his whole dinner. And the rule was you couldn't get up from the table until your plate was clean. And so he was sitting there with his soggy, wet fish sticks, gagging on them. And I think I'd fed mine to the dog, or maybe planted them in some soil or something. So I remember walking back into the living room, and he was sitting at the dining room table, and his little shoulders were slumped over and his head was hanging down. And it just felt so freaking unfair. I could see that the way that my brother was being parented was just dimming his light. And I had one of those moments, those kind of the voice of God is speaking to you, or your higher self, or I don't know. But the message I got was, when I became a parent, I would do whatever it took to do it well. So I became a psychology major in college. I specialized in family systems. This work found me. I'd become a life coach. So I have all this education in human behavior and behavior change and family dynamics. But lo and behold, when I have my own two kids in my early 30s, things were not going well. I used to watch The Super Nanny. It would actually make me feel better about my own parenting. And I tried the whole timeout thing, 3 minutes on the step because they're 3 years old. That didn't work so well. One day, my daughter, she had that fine, curly blonde hair, and it would get all tangly. And I think we must have been going to a party or something, because I remember having this feeling like she can't go looking like this. I wanted to show up at this party looking like the mom who had it all together with the cutest kid. Thank you very much. And she was having none of it. And so we were just going at it. And I'm trying to brush her hair and she's freaking out. And in a moment of just utter reactivity, I took the hairbrush and swatted her on the butt with it. And I remember that microsecond, this look that she gave me, first of just shock and then disappointment and then fear. And her little eyes welled up with tears and I dropped the brush and burst into tears. And I just thought to myself, this isn't it. I'm not living up to that promise that I made myself when I was 16 years old. And I've got this education. Like, what the heck? And I realized in that moment that it wasn't the 3-year-old's behavior that needed to change. It was mine. And that if I was having this much of a challenge keeping it together, I would imagine that there's a lot of parents just like me who wanted desperately to do better for their children than was done for them, but didn't know how. Welcome to the Parent Coaching Show. I'm Kiva Schuler. I'm the founder and CEO of the Giant Institute for Parenting, which certifies parenting coaches all over the world. I am so excited about this show. It has been on our dream board at Jai for years. And so it's great to finally arrive. Thanks for being here and listening in. This show is intended to be a place where we can break the rules and stop only showing the bright, shiny, happy, Instagram-worthy aspects of parenting to each other and be really honest and vulnerable in the challenges that we all face. You're going to be listening in on real-world parent coaching sessions where our master trainers at the Jai Institute for Parenting are going to be coaching both students and graduates of our program. Because let me assure you that even though we are parent coaches, we still have our challenges. We still have our struggles. We still have our failures. And I hope that that normalizes this for you. Parenting is hard. And it can be the most fulfilling, rewarding, joyful experience of your life. On this show, we're going to be asking a different question than most adults and parents have asked generation after generation after generation. In some way, shape, or form, we've heard, what's wrong with the kids these days? Their behavior, it's terrible. If only they were like us. I found quotes all the way back to 500 AD that say any version of that same message. But I think that we're at a point in our evolution and our understanding of human behavior where we can gently turn the mirror around. Our children model our behavior. They are our mirrors. They will show us loudly sometimes where we aren't in integrity, where we're asking more of them than we are demonstrating in ourselves. And I want to be able to say that without creating shame or more mom guilt. Lordy knows there's enough of that going around. We're just human beings relating to other human beings. And that's always going to be messy. And that's okay. And I believe that there's always a path forward, always a way back to connection, always a way to repair, especially when we're talking about our kids. And so on this show, you're going to see different parents with different circumstances, of different backgrounds, with different age children, bringing what feel like very day-to-day challenges to the conversation. But what you'll also see is that the answer always lies underneath the behavior. One of our guiding principles here at the Jai Institute for Parenting is that all behavior, whether it's positive or negative, is a reflection of a need, and whether that need has been met or unmet. In simpler terms, children use behavior to solve their problems. It's their communication language. It's how they're telling us what's going on. I mean, heck, most adults don't have the words to express their needs clearly. And so children don't either. But as you listen in on the Parent Coaching Show, what you'll hear is that as we get clear on our own needs as parents and fill up our own cup and tend to our own behavior, the children's behavior shifts dramatically. Because children do way more of what we do than what we say. You've probably figured that out by now. Now, I'm imagining, if I can get into your worldview, that you might be saying, parent coaching? What? What's that? That's a thing? And so let me explain what parent coaches do. Well, first of all, let me just get on my soapbox for a hot second, because if you think about it, this is crazy. In every other area of life, if we have a goal, we get education, we get support, we get coaching, right? Like if you want to run a marathon, you're probably going to go get a personal trainer or maybe a running coach. If you want to become a lawyer, you go to law school. I mean, heck, if you want to drive a car, you need to go to driver's ed and pass a test. But parenting, which most of us can agree is like the most important job that we have, like we're raising the future leaders and adults and contributors to humanity. No pressure or anything. There's not a lot of education available. There's not a lot of support. Back when I started Jai in 2011, I learned pretty quickly that there was a belief in our culture, especially here in the United States, that parenting should come naturally. And that therefore, if I admit that I'm struggling as a parent, then somehow I'm stating to the world that I'm not a good person. Things have changed, and I'm so glad. And I think that there's more of an understanding now that what actually comes naturally comes from the way that we were parented. And we're either unconsciously repeating those patterns or we're trying so hard to be not that we're creating new dysfunctional patterns of relating with our children instead. I think this is adults' work to do. I think that as parents, we get to go first and look at our nervous system reactivity and our communication strategies and our ability to stay calm and think about what values matter where we are in this moment with our children and focus on those. We've got so much support coming your way, but I hope what you really get from this show is a lot of hope, a lot of relief, and feeling way less like you're alone in your desire to parent peacefully. On behalf of the entire team here at the Jai Institute for Parenting, thank you for listening. Make sure to subscribe, and you can check out more about our work at jaiinstituteforparenting.com. We'll see you on episode 1.